Hi, I'm going to present to you today about how to build a storyline for your class. Specifically, I'm going to use examples to kind of illustrate what a storyline can do for your content. Simulations are often viewed as one-off little lessons or units, and I think they're great. You need to use simulations. But a long-term narrative builds an experience for your kids to play through. They get invested into a storyline and they feel like they're experiencing the events themselves, which creates so much great engagement. So I'm going to be going over two examples I've been working on this year, one with another teacher and one for myself. If you like these ideas or you want to share anything or give me some feedback, there's Twitter on the bottom. You can email me. I'd love to speak with you. So let me jump right in. Storylines are so useful for school, mainly because that's how our students experience a lot of their interest. These are characters from a game called Final Fantasy, which is one of my favorite game series, and it's very difficult games. You put in 40, 80, 90 hours into a game easy, and that's a lot of time. And the main reason a lot of people do it is because they're pushed to look into a story. They care about the characters long term. Even games that aren't so much about individual characters, they're more like adventure games where you want to explore the world. Legend of Zelda being a good example. Storyline matters because it puts you in that first person perspective and allows you to be personally invested. That's a huge thing, and if you can tap into that into your classroom where kids are personally invested into what happens because they care about a storyline or this idea that they feel like they're part of something bigger, that's huge. So the first example I want to give you is for a friend of mine. She teaches math. In some kids, math looks like this. It was definitely that for me. I struggled in my middle school and high school experience with math. So the thought is, well, what can she do to make math on the whole more interesting? She has a bunch of TEKS to go through in her year. So I suggested that we take each 9 weeks, find the TEKS that she's going to focus on. So in the first 9 weeks, we're going to kind of talk about that just a little bit. She does a lot of work with fractions and decimals and percentages, either converting them or simplifying or multiplying. And so we wanted to tap into those things. So what can we do? Well, at the very beginning, we decided to create all her classes. She has 5 classes for them to be on an island nation or separate islands, and it's called the Island Nation of Kor. That's it. So nothing new has happened as of yet. They're all separate islands. The first period is one island, and so on. And each class will come in, and they'll get to create a geography for their island. They'll determine if there's mountains, if there's rivers, and so on, and they'll get to build a culture. So they can come up with, within each island there's different groups, and so they can come up with their own banners, and that's a really good team building, group building exercise where they imagine what does this island look like and what does it do. So at the very beginning you have them play through that, and they have some ownership over the island. So everything's really, really good. But now you want to add some conflict, something to motivate them in the class, to get them to realize they have to do something, a task or a mission. So the idea was a tsunami hits. It comes to the islands and it wipes out all the homes, and it's devastating. Resources are depleted, and at the same time, the king or the queen, in this example, receives a message. There is a nearby pirate country that's coming to attack you in 5 weeks. They're going to be showing up. So, oh my goodness, you've got so many things to get ready for. We have to rebuild. We have to get ready for this attack. What do we do? Well, we took her first sets of TEKS were all about decimals and fractions. And we said, well, let's find a common theme there. What are things that kids can do? What type of problems can they do? Revolving specifically, I think it was converting fractions to decimals and so on. And we decided, well, the first thing they need to do is rebuild their home. So what group of kids will probably be your stonemasons? Another group of kids will be your lumberjacks. Another group of kids are going to be like city planners. And so you can divide them up into different subsets and say, okay, you guys, your job is to get enough stone, and we will need you to work on it. And so all the problems that week will be around stonework. So you can give them a block and have them divided up into sections. You can give them wall and have them figure out what percentage of that is a certain color. There's all kinds of things, but kind of give them the same theme in their work. Same thing with your lumberjacks and your city planners, where they have to figure out the distance as they map out where these new things are going to be. And so they're going to rebuild their village for that first unit. And so you're checking for their understanding and what they're through the word problems. But to them, they're thinking about, oh, we're rebuilding something. You can even assign points to correct problems. For example, you can say each kid needs to complete 4 correct problems today. And if they do that, by the end of the week, you can set a number that they need to have achieved. Let's say the whole class as a group needs to have completed 100 problems, and you need the stone builders to complete 20 of those. So they have a goal to complete, and if they don't, the village isn't complete. And that can change something in the storyline so that they don't all succeed. Like, you can put the impetus on the whole class. But let's say they do, and they rebuild a village. This is a picture from Minecraft, but imagine, oh my gosh, if you did this in Minecraft, you let them actually play this out, and they are having to do real math and they're building it. Or having Legos in your classroom, let them use Legos to build their village. Well, anyways, they rebuild their village. Well, you still got the pirates coming. So her next unit, let's say it's simplifying and multiplying fractions. Well, now they need to build fortifications. So now you take it a step further. Now that we've built our village, our home, let's go out and decide, and you can continue the theme of building, but you can change their roles. You can have now some working on parapets. You can have some working on an armory, things like that. So instead of just collecting resources, now they're constructing something. And so after that, I could not recall her math concepts. Her next one would maybe be making weapons. And along the way, by the way, there's a cool tie into social studies or even just science. Like, what is the science of building a fort? What is the technology behind developing weapons? What are weapons look like in the past, and how have they been advanced? So this is a great opportunity through the storyline too to create interdisciplinary interaction. I mean, who would want to just do a simple math problem when they're building a weapon? How great is that? They get to design the weapon, they get to figure it out, and then they need to do training for the fight. So you can have them do training scenarios where you give them just tons of problems related to your concept, and you can consider that your training regimen. And finally, the pirates show up and you go to war. Now, if you notice along the way that your kids aren't ready, there's one section of it they're not ready for, you can say that, oh my gosh, the pirates, they were a squall that stopped them from coming in. So we got a couple more days to get ready. Or you can move it up quicker. They weren't ready for this, and it creates tension in the story. But basically, your fight with the pirates will be an assessment of any type, and you're going to give them a whole series of problems involving all the things they've done. And if they can achieve that, let's say you want a certain number of points for each class to overcome the pirates, then they'll win, and that's awesome. And as you move forward, you can add other elements to keep the storyline going. You can have a traitor who actually, you beat the pirates, but this traitor's now revealed your secrets or access to some gold mine or something like this, and so now you have got to figure out who the traitor is in your story. Maybe a new piece of technology, some new science comes out. That's what those symbols are on the bottom. New science comes out, and it allows the world to be better in some way. And you talk about the impact of a scientific invention, or an ancient king who used to rule the country is now come, and he wants to raise the dead, zombies, to conquer this area. So now you got to get ready for him. It doesn't have to be all conflict, but you do want something to create tension in your story. One last thing, I'll give you some examples of what I want to do in Texas history. So social studies already has essentially quote-unquote a storyline. So in Texas history we have 4 regions. And so at the beginning of the year I have my kids go hunting in a simulation as if they're mastodon hunting, so they learn about artifacts and ancient creatures in Texas. And where they decide to settle in Texas will determine which group they will become. Apache, Comanche, Teagwa, Corwiltican, some of the tribes in Texas. So at the beginning they're all natives, but they're very different, and they have to figure out why they're different based on their geography. But then the Spanish come with the conquistadors, and eventually they build the missions. And so I'll maybe take one tribe in history, say the Corwilticans, and they will become my Spaniards. So they have a first-person perspective of what it's like to be a Spaniard. What are their tensions? So they can act in class as that, and then the natives have to respond to the Spaniards and the storyline. So there's a moral sense, a dilemma. They get to read primary sources, and they can identify with those primary sources. The Comanche can decide, maybe I don't want to attack the Spanish all the time, or the Teagwa wants to join them, or they can look at the motivations of people in history, which is so powerful. And then after this, let's say Father Miguel Hidalgo y Castilla, he declares that there's a new Mexico. So you have the war for Mexican independence. And so now maybe my Teagwa will disappear during this war. They're not as relevant in history. And that sounds terrible to say, but they're not the thing we're focusing on. And so that group becomes the Mexicans. And so now they have first-person perspective. So the time I get to the Alamo, I would maybe have a group of Mexicans, some natives, some Tejanos, and some Anglos. And so the Mexicans, they have their perspective, and the Anglos have their perspective. And the question is, the Tejanos, the Mexicans born in Texas, do they want to join the Anglos? Do they want to fight against the people who are more like them, the Mexicans? The natives, what do they do? Do they want to be involved in this whole process? This on top of a gamified classroom or gamification, where I assign points for different activities. Now maybe their points give them access to different weapons and technology, so they can choose to change history. I hope you can see the power of building a storyline, how it can draw kids in. This looks like it would be a great class. I would love to have learned history this way. And so if you have any ideas or suggestions, you're welcome to tweet me. You're welcome to email me, and I'd love to help you out.